Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff's next US Open meeting, 6 long years in the making. Flushing Meadows, New York, 6 long years ago. A 15-year-old tennis debutante faced the queen of the sport in front of 24,000 delirious fans on Arthur Ashe Stadium. The match was unmemorable, even a little painful to watch at times. It ended in a 6-3, 6-0 drubbing, during which the teenager learned how bright the primetime spotlights can feel, even if, or maybe especially if, those 24,000 delirious fans have arrived for your coming-out party. For everyone who was there, or watching on television, the moment was unforgettable, as they so often are with Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka. No torches were passed. No batons were grabbed. This was far more enduring than something as trite as that. We had a really special moment here that a lot of people remember, Osaka said late Saturday afternoon, after a 3-set win over Daria Kasatkina confirmed that this year's US Open would have its first blockbuster matchup. It's all about to happen again, after 6 years, and a lot of life for both Gauff and Osaka, with each of them playing a far different role. Back then, before Gauff had entered the realm of athletes known solely by their first names, her parents and coaches wore T-shirts that said, "Call me Coco," across the front. People were still referring to her by her formal name, Corey, which is her father's name as well. Whatever she was being called, it wasn't her night. I remember it was a tough moment for me, Gauff said after beating Magdalena Freck ahead of Osaka's win over Kasatkina. I put way too much pressure on myself thinking I maybe had a chance in that moment to actually do something, which I definitely did. I think it was that I just felt more expectation that I should, than maybe belief. When Gauff didn't live up to her own outsized expectations, she was 15. Osaka was the world #1 and defending champion. She reacted as one might expect a 15-year-old who was feeling like she had let herself and everyone down to react. Gauff was choking back tears at changeovers as Osaka rolled through the second set, before having to wipe them away when it was over. And then the thing that made this match so unforgettable, but also surreal and a little strange, with discomfort as well as cheer, happened. Mary Jo Fernandez, the former pro and commentator, was standing on the court and readying herself for the post-match interview with the winner. She was keeping an eye on Gauff, who went to gather her rackets, her bag, her water bottles, and likely those plastic containers of cut-up fruit that she brings to most matches. She and everyone else were waiting to give Gauff that round of rousing applause that the player who comes up short gets on the walk-off. But then Fernandez saw Osaka going over to Gauff. She figured Osaka was checking to see if Gauff was okay. But then they kept talking, and Fernandez started to overhear some of what they were saying and to realize what was going on. Osaka, who is half Japanese and half Haitian, but grew up mostly in America, had anointed herself an ESPN producer. She was trying to convince Gauff to join her in the middle of the court to speak to the crowd with her and Fernandez. Most of them had come out to see her, Osaka had told her. Why not speak to them? And then it looked like Gauff was actually going to listen to Osaka's advice. And then I realized I was going to be doing a dual interview, Fernandez recalled this weekend. That's not something you experience very often. There's a decent chance she will never experience an interview quite like that again. Fernandez might have been the perfect person to do the interview. Her husband, Tony Gottsick, Roger Federer's agent and partner, represented Gauff at the time. Fernandez had known Gauff since her preteen years. This was sort of like talking to a family friend. Gauff and Osaka wandered over to the microphones. The crowd roared, which just made Gauff cry more. Whatever comfort Osaka was providing, she was still going through something unpleasant in front of tens of thousands in person and many, many more on television. Fernandez stated the obvious, telling Gauff that the crowd, who had urged her on through a painful night, loved her. Then she asked Gauff what Osaka had told her at the net. "She told me that I did amazing and good luck," Gauff said, her voice shaky and her fingers wiping away the tears. Then she asked if I could do the on-court interview with her, and I said no because I knew I was going to cry the whole time, but she encouraged me to do it. Deep breaths, more roars. Fernandez then asked a question that included some comfort as well. "You're only 15, Coco," Fernandez told her. This is your first U.S. Open in the main draw. What has the experience been like tonight, playing against one of the very best in the world and the world #1 Naomi? Gauff said it had been an amazing experience. She complimented Osaka, calling her amazing. Then she had something else to say as she thanked Osaka again. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to take this moment away from her, because she really deserves it, so thank you. Osaka nodded. There was another hug. And then the interview turned to her, but not quite. Osaka had something to say to the family of her opponent, the kid she had seen often at training centers in South Florida, where they both lived and Gauff still does. Flushing Meadows, New York, U.S. Open, 2025. The stadium lights glowed like stars trapped in a dome. The hum of 24,000 fans grew into a steady roar, ebbing and flowing like ocean tides. Arthur Ashe Stadium wasn't just a court today. It was a time machine. 6 years. That's how long it had been. Naomi Osaka stood near the baseline, her warm-up jacket draped loosely over her shoulders, headphones snug over her ears. The bass beat thudded in her chest, but it was her own heartbeat that she felt louder. The last time she stood on this court in prime time, against this opponent, they had both been different women. One was still a teen prodigy. The other, a champion struggling under the weight of her own excellence. Now they were veterans, still young, still luminous, but carrying more than rackets in their hands. They carried experience, expectations, and something else that couldn't be quantified, growth. Across the net, Coco Gauff bounced lightly on her feet, her braid swinging behind her like a pendulum counting down to destiny. The crowd welcomed her with chants, half reverent, half electric, and she gave a quick nod. Focused, calm, poised. The Coco of 2019 would have blinked at the pressure. This Coco wore it like armor. They had met in the third round that year. A teenage Gauff had been dismantled by a clinical, composed Osaka in straight sets. But what the world remembered wasn't the score. It was the moment after, when Osaka had invited Gauff to share the spotlight, to speak, to be seen not in defeat, but in emergence. A passing of empathy from one young black woman to another. But that was then. Now, in 2025, they were both back, not just to play, but to define something. Naomi, now 27, had stepped away from tennis more than once. Motherhood had changed her. Time had changed her. She didn't chase trophies anymore. She chased clarity. But that hunger, that fire that had lit up Grand Slams past, it still simmered beneath her calm gaze. Coco, at 21, had become the player everyone hoped she'd be. A Grand Slam champion, a top seed, a voice in a new generation of athletes. Her game was sharper, her mind stronger, her spirit unshakable. And yet she knew no match would ever mean more to her emotionally than this one. This wasn't just a fourth-round match. This was history folding in on itself. First set echoes. The rallies were long, thunderous, balanced. Gauff's forehand, always a weapon, whipped across the court like a scythe. Osaka, with her trademark composure, absorbed the pace and redirected it with surgical precision. Each point felt like a question. Who had evolved more? 3-3. The scoreboard was neutral, but the air wasn't. Every shot held weight, every sidestep a memory. At one point, Gauff landed an ace and turned toward her box, eyes locking with her mother's. The same mother who had cried after that 2019 loss. But now her smile was proud, grounded. Osaka, meanwhile, kept her gaze forward. No theatrics, no fuss, just intention. She took the first set 6-4, sealing it with a drop shot so delicate it felt like a whisper. But Coco didn't panic. She nodded to herself, towel draped around her neck, resetting her breath. Second set, fire and flow. If the first set was a memory, the second was a declaration. Gauff came out blazing, serve, forehand, net approach. It was the most aggressive tennis she had played all tournament. And it rattled Osaka, just a little. Enough for Coco to break early. At 4-1, the crowd roared louder, feeding off her energy. Naomi fought back, as champions do. A double-fisted backhand down the line here. A clutch hold there. But Coco held on. 6-3. One set all. And with it, something else settled in. a sense that this match wasn't just a meeting of past and present. It was a mirror. Two different paths, converging again. Third set full circle. As they came out for the decider, the shadows on the court lengthened. Sunset painted the stadium in gold and rose. Time felt suspended. The first few games were a stalemate. Long rallies, fist pumps, respectful nods. Not a word passed between them, but the respect was thick in the air. Then, at 3-2, Osaka hit a second serve at 103 miles per hour. An ace. The crowd gasped. Gauff clapped her strings in acknowledgement. That was Naomi style, graceful, but devastating when focused. But Coco wasn't done. At 4-4, she chased down a wide ball and hit a forehand pass on the run, a shot that would loop endlessly on highlight reels. She broke serve. And then, standing at 5-4, with the ball in her hand, she took a deep breath. Match point came. Osaka returned deep. Gauff scrambled. A blistering backhand. Osaka lunged. Net. Game. Set. Match. 6-4, 3-6, 6-4. Coco dropped her racket, arms rising toward the twilight. The crowd erupted, but it wasn't just for her. It was for the journey. Aftermath, words and silence. They met at the net. Osaka smiled first, warm, knowing, peaceful. You earned that, she said, and Gauff nodded, tears brimming. Thank you for everything. Since the beginning. Naomi touched her shoulder. You don't owe me anything, but I'm proud of you. This time, there were no mics. No post-match invitation to the victor to share the spotlight. Because this wasn't a passing of the torch. This was two torches, burning bright, lighting the court together. Epilogue, headlines and history. The next day, newspapers around the world ran with variations of the same headline. Gauff versus Osaka, a rivalry reborn. But for those who watched, truly watched, it wasn't about rivalry. It was about evolution. Of athletes. Of women. Of tennis itself. 6 years had passed since their first U.S. Open